Hello everyone. This video lesson is about carbon credits and carbon offsets, which are the main elements of carbon markets. We will start by understanding all the concepts in a practical manner so that it becomes easy for you to understand carbon markets and also intuitive. Right. Now, carbon markets, are the markets or they're the trading systems in which carbon credits are sold or bought, which means carbon credits are traded. Now, it's a you can say the quality of any market, characteristic of any market, that you have two parties at least, the sellers and the buyers, right? So this is a key characteristic of any market. You go to any market, you will have all the shops and showrooms wherein sellers they are sitting and buyers they visit the markets and they buy the goods. Similarly, in carbon markets, carbon credits are either sold or bought, right? So it should be a balanced mechanism. The companies, the industries, as part of their operations, they emit greenhouse gas emissions. They have to balance their additional, greenhouse gas emissions from or through the carbon credit route, which we are going to understand how, right? So the main elements of carbon market, we'll study the main elements of carbon market through start with our this series, right? So in the market, I just mentioned that we need two parties. One is the buyer, one is the seller. Sellers, they have something to sell, and in our case, they have carbon credits to sell, and they generate, either they are the generators as well as the sellers, or they just generate they just sell the credits, right? So we have in our case, practically we have some exchanges, or we have some entities which are given license by the governments to trade these carbon credits, right? And on the second side, the other side, we have buyers, which these are the companies, these are the entities which need these credits, right? Apart from that, you have your buyers and sellers here. You need carbon credits. I mean, we have discussed this. It's a carbon market, so we need carbon credits, right? Now, credits are, what are carbon credits? They are the specific quantity of greenhouse gas emissions reduced or removed. Okay, and that specific quantity is normally it's 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. Now, if we talk about other elements of the carbon markets, we have some regulatory frameworks or the market type, right? So regulatory frameworks are nothing but the regulations, the laws which have been made by the governments. In India, we have a law on carbon trading now, CCTS. In US, sorry, in European Union, we have a law called EU ETS. And similarly, in many countries, they have created the laws, the regulations, right, for the entities to do these tradings, and they have different rules, different articles within the rules. So these are the regulatory framework which drive these carbon markets, right, from which these carbon markets have been evolved. Then there's something called standards and methodologies. Now, standards and methodologies are just the rules which these standards, as we know from the reporting frameworks, if we take so GRI reporting framework. GRI reporting framework talks about all the rules, all the guidelines which these companies have to follow to report their ESG data. Similarly, these standards, carbon credit or carbon trading or carbon market standards, different standards, they talk about the rules, they state the rules, how this whole process should be carried out. Now, there's something called registries, and you can think of registries as the banks, right? So once a carbon credit is generated, right? It has to be stored somewhere. It has to be seen by, maybe the sellers, the buyers also. So it has to be there, right? The some attributes, so which means carbon credit number, carbon credit ID, and other details how the carbon credit has been generated, what was the project behind that carbon credit, and other details. So these are the banks and registries. Then verification and certification is the process. So once the process is completed, verification or the process is going on, the verification is very important in case of carbon credits, because if a company is purchasing carbon credits, it's these emission reductions are not happening within its own operations or within its value chain. So it has no idea of what is going on, right? So verification or the audit of these carbon credits is very, very important step to to identify or to ensure the authenticity of this carbon credit. Then we have the carbon price and trading. So trading happens in the market, carbon, and there's a price associated with these carbon credits, which is dynamic in nature. And these are all the elements of the carbon markets in general. Now we know about carbon markets. Carbon markets are about carbon credits. They're traded in carbon markets. There are different elements. There are sellers. There are buyers, and these carbon credits, you you cannot just trade them in thin air. There should be some standards, there should be some regulations first. Then from those regulations, there should be some standards coming out with the rules, etc. There are registries which should show all the details of these carbon credits, and which should also ensure the transparency of these carbon credits, so that there's no double counting in this case also, right? Now we'll move on to the carbon credit. So what is carbon credit? We just discussed that it is, traded in the carbon market. Now buyer spends money to purchase a credit, but it is not something which is, which is tangible. You cannot hold it in your bag or in your hand. Think of it as a certificate, right? Simple. It can be traded. So shares, the stocks in the stock market, they can be shared, they can be traded, right? Somebody will buy them, and then maybe after a year or so, he will sell it to other parties. So these are the trading that goes on. Similarly, carbon credits are traded. So in case of carbon credits, normally what happens is there's just one step trading. So the carbon credit is generated, it comes to the market, it is registered in the market, right? And seller will sell it to the buyer, and then buyer will use it in the future. It's not, repeatedly traded normally. I haven't seen it. I haven't observed it. So what is carbon credit? A carbon credit is a tradable certificate representing 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. So that's the unit of one carbon credit, which you should remember. Now, 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide, what does it mean? It means that 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide was either reduced from the atmosphere, or avoided, or removed from the atmosphere, right? And the purpose, there's always a purpose behind the existence of anything, right? So the purpose is to create a to create a market based incentive for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, just think of it this way: we will buy something only if we need it, right? We may need it for our daily needs, for our basic needs, even for luxury, right? Even for our entertainment. It's a need, right? So we will buy it if we need something in general, or if something has a usage, right? It should have some sort of usage. And the carbon credits, they're the instruments to incentivize the reduction or removal of greenhouse gas emissions. We just discussed about that. Now, I mentioned these two words. First is your first is the reduced here, and second is your removal, right? And these two words have two different meanings, and there are two different types of carbon credits, right? First is your reduction based carbon credits, avoidance or reduction based carbon credits, and just try to understand the meaning of this type of carbon credit. They prevent emissions that would have occurred in the baseline scenario or in the original scenario. So we will try to understand this through an example. Renewable energy replace coal. So we normally buy, all the companies also, if we take example of our country, India, more than 50% still, around 50% is fossil fuel, right? So if a company is buying fossil fuel based energy in the, say, baseline scenario, now what it has done is it has purchased carbon credits, and the carbon credit says that the project, it has bought the carbon credit as part of the project, which has saved X amount of million tons, X amount of metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, because it used renewable energy, or it generated electricity through renewable energy, which would, otherwise would have generated through fossil fuel. So now, if the company it purchases that, if it purchased that carbon, carbon credit, it can show that it has reduced that amount of energy. So simply, if I put, if I've just confused you, simply put, renewable energy is replacing coal. If used, it is replacing coal, and so it is reducing those, that particular amount of greenhouse gas emissions from the atmosphere, right? It is not removing anything from the atmosphere, but it is reducing something. So, right? So, if you generate energy through fossil fuels, through coal, some amount of greenhouse gas emissions will be generated. But if you know, replace that with renewable energy, you're not generating anything, or very less, maybe because of the transportation of the, transportation of the material, or, some other purpose. But yes, eventually, effectively, you are reducing these emissions. Now, removal credits are the removal credits mean they're pulling the carbon out of atmosphere. They're not reducing it. They're completely pulling it out directly from the atmosphere. Which means, if you know a simple example, if on a barren land you're creating a forestation project, you're creating a forest, right? It will take the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, right? Otherwise, it would have been zero. Now it is completely taking, and there are technologies like, direct air capture, which sucks the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which means it is removing the atmosphere. It is not just reducing, it is removing the uh, the carbon dioxide equivalent, right? So these are the two types of carbon credits. The most common type of carbon credits are reduction carbon credits, because most of the technologies, most of the projects, they support reduction only, right? Removal carbon credits are of higher quality, but they're less common. Going forward, I think, 10 years from now, we will see more of removal carbon credits as the technology advance, right? Now, we have something called carbon credit or versus carbon offset. So we have the new term now, carbon offset. We already understand what carbon credits are. Now understand the scenario. Say, I am Volkswagen. Volkswagen is an automobile company. Consider that I am from the sustainability team of Volkswagen, and so I represent Volkswagen. So let's say I am Volkswagen, and I purchased a carbon credit from carbon markets, right, at a price. What will I do with it? What do you think I should do with it? What I will do is, I am a big greenhouse gas emitter, because I manufacture vehicles, cars, etc. And it's a carbon heavy process. We have a lot of manufacturing units, a lot of raw materials and so. Effectively, we produce a lot of, we emit a lot of greenhouse gas emission, big, huge greenhouse gas emissions, right? And I am taking steps to reduce these greenhouse gas emissions in my operations and also in my value chain through, my suppliers. We are making our suppliers all aware. But that's not enough for me to go no net zero by 2050. We studied about net zero when we were, you know, studying about SBTI, right? Net zero is an important concept. So it's not enough for me to neutralize my emissions completely or to go completely zero. So what I will do is I bought carbon credits. So now what will I do? What I will do I will do is I have carbon credits. I will retire those carbon credits. So retire is a new word, right? Retiring means now the carbon credits have has been used and my emissions, if I have one carbon credit, my emission has been reduced by the same amount, which is 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, right? But now since I have used it, it has been retired and it will be updated in the registry as retired so that it cannot be used by any other company, any other firm, anyone in the world again. Now, this process of using carbon credit, retiring the carbon credit is called the carbon offset. We are offsetting the carbon. The company is offsetting the carbon. So carbon credit is the supply side, right? Generation of carbon credit, the product generated by a project, and the act of using that credit to neutralize emissions from another source is called the carbon offset. So this is a process, right? Now, uh, what will happen is, so carbon offsets, they're the measurable, verifiable emission reductions from the projects that reduce or remove or avoid greenhouse gas emission, gases. And we've just saw this process. So emissions are produced by the company Volkswagen. In our example, we are producing all the emissions, we are emitting all the emissions, right? And some other place that offset project is implemented. That project is, reforestation project or renewable energy project is implemented in some other country, maybe, in Africa or in Malaysia, Indonesia, based, depends on the project. And Volkswagen, say, has invested in the project today, right? Invested in the project means the project is there. So what will happen is the Volkswagen go to, some, it will consult the, there are consultants, there are entities in this market also. It's a huge industry, it's a big business. The Volkswagen will consult, they will suggest the projects, they will based on the consultation, based on the climatic goals of Volkswagen, and then Volkswagen decides to invest in one such project, right? So it invests the money today, but it will not get the carbon credits. It will be promised the carbon credits and it will invest as per, the current price. Also, Volkswagen will say that yes, because of our emission trajectory, we want to buy, say, 1,000 carbon credits or 10,000 carbon credits, right? So it will pay, and then the entity, the project documents and all, the verification has been done, everything has been done. The agreement will be prepared and it will be said in the agreement that yes, the carbon credits will be available to you after, say, 8 years or after 10 years, and then you can retire those carbon credits, right? So this is how it happens. Then after 8 years or, during the process, carbon credits will be issued as per the agreement. And, the agreements are, what I have observed is they're not rock solid because these are projects. So reforestation project, right? Anything can happen. If it is happening in Indonesia, if it is happening, near the sea, if tsunamis come or floods come, then, it may go haywire. So these are the different kind of risks which are involved with this. So that's why we need high quality carbon credits. We will study about them. There are some qualities, there are some characteristics. But yes, if all goes well, yes, carbon credits will be issued. Buyer will purchase the credits, right? Or there are different arrangements of money involved, right? So money will go in tranches based on the progress, etc. Now, what we are going to really see is, I just wanted to again sort of discuss what really happens in the industry, right? So we discussed about SBTI in a last series, right? And I said by 2050, companies which are signatory to SBTI targets, they have to go net zero, right? Reducing their own greenhouse gas emissions and also greenhouse gas emissions from their value chain, from their supply chain, right? So scope 3 drastically and neutralize any remaining residual emissions. Now this neutralization is through carbon credits, right? Neutralization of residual emissions. Also, there are regulations around the world. So that was the first point. But now, so the second point is that there are regulations around the world. Biggest of the companies, they have to neutralize their for the compliance purpose. If they cannot, then they will be subjected to penalties. So there are two factors, two forces we can say. One is your voluntary, which we talked about. The SBTI one is one of the voluntary reasons companies have signed the SBTI targets, right? They say that yes, we are going to be net zero by 2050, 2045. So for residual emissions, they have to buy carbon credit. Also, if they're subjected under regulations, which is the second force, they have to buy the carbon credit. So, right? So what happens is the companies, they invest in these projects, carbon reduction or carbon removal projects, right? Depends through agencies, because the agencies which do this kind of work, they identify projects as per the strategy and goals, and there are they register also. The verification is also done, right? So these companies, they implement these projects following all the regulations, all the methodologies, and look for buyers. So we are going to study that, in our maybe next video in a bit more details. But right. So why do carbon credits exist? We have understood by now that reducing emissions in our own operations and in the value chain is not an easy task, right? And you cannot do it 100%. You cannot do 100% reduction. More so in case of certain industries, like you have hard to abate sectors, aviation, shipping, steel, aluminum, right? So these kind of sectors, it's very difficult, right? But on the other hand, this climate change problem, it cannot wait. It has to be addressed. So the solution is carbon credits, right? So what you cannot reduce in your own operations through your own efforts, you invest, right? You have the money, you invest in a project which is happening somewhere, right? In other country or maybe in your own country. So if you're investing in that project logically, right? If you're investing in, say, you're giving money to a company which is building or which is creating a forest on a barren land, in a way, your investment results in that forest, right? And if once the forest, because it will take 10 years, 15 years to, grow the forest, in order to, uh, in order for the forest to be able to reduce those carbon emissions from the atmosphere, it will generate carbon credits, say after 10 years, after 15 years, once the verification is done, once, uh, the entity, the verification entity, or the entity or the company which is developing that forest issues, they also quantify that yes, this amount of greenhouse gas emissions are now reduced, or will be able to, this project will be able to reduce this amount of emissions. So the company will get those carbon credits, right? So this is how, this is why these carbon credits exist, because there is, you can say, supply and demand kind of a scenario for these projects, right? Now, we will study about characteristics of a high quality, credit. Now, if you say invest your money in a project and say from US, your project in Ghana, your company is headquartered in the US somewhere in Seattle, let's say, right? And you want to invest in a project, but and you identify a project, right, based on your climate goals, etc. It's an afforestation project or a reforestation project. You think it's a good project, it matches your goals, but the project is taking place in Ghana, in Africa. You don't have any operations, you don't want anyone to go there personally and check the project if it is happening or not. It's a different country, different culture in Africa, right? Now, they should be, right? If they're selling a carbon credit from that project, then there should be some guardrails, there should be some controls. You should get that assurance that yes, this carbon credit is genuine. Okay. So, how will you ensure that it is genuine and good quality? In this field, there are a lot of variables, there are a lot of risks, a lot of fakes. Now the industry is improving, there are a lot of controls, verification goes on, quality of projects have improved, registries and standards like Vera, Gold Standard, they have become, big reputed names in this industry, and the companies go through them. They have the standards also, verification standard and the carbon project. So they set all the guidelines, they set all the rules. Vera, Gold, right, and the other companies, ART, other companies also. They have the registries themselves, right? So you go through them, but yes, there are some checks that you have to do based on the documentation, etc., based on the verification report, which is an independent verification report. Similarly, how will you check them? Right? You should have some parameters to check, and these are the characteristics of a high quality credit. And the most important quality is the additionality, right? What is additionality? Additionality means, say you have invested in a project and you're getting the carbon credits, right? The project, I mean, additionality means that the project wouldn't have happened without that investment, which means the greenhouse gas reductions wouldn't have happened if the project was not there, right? And we will see what it means on the next slide, right? But the second quality is your permanence, which means the emission reduction or the removal which the project has achieved should be lasting, right? It should not be reversed. It should be lasting. And the verification, this has to be ensured by the verifier should be certificated, right? So should be certified. Then measurability and verification. Quantified, the greenhouse gas emissions reduction should be quantified with the robust methodologies and should be verified by the independent auditors. Then there should not be no leakage. Leakage means the project doesn't shift emissions elsewhere. So if, say, on a particular piece of land, you're doing the project, emission reduction is happening. It should not happen that, on the adjacent piece of land or somewhere near the project, because of your project, there are increase in some emissions, or you're cutting down trees. You have to cut down trees to get the reduction here, which is, the purpose is defeated if that's happening. So there should be no leakage. Then there should be sustainable development benefits, not just the reduction or removal of greenhouse gas emissions, but the communities should also be benefited, livelihood should be created, like farmers, a lot of agriculture related projects. So farmers should be benefited, soil should be benefited, other natural resources should be benefited, right? So these are the characteristics of a high quality credit. And there are project document, right? So it has all the details about the carbon project, right? And only after going through this project document, all the details of the project, the verification is done. The company will invest in the project only after going through these documents, and the document should have all these kind of details, right? Now, carbon credits are used. Two types of markets are there, right? So first is your compliance market where government is involved. So government regulators, they allow company to use offsets as part of the legal obligation. So for example, we have EU ETS. In India, we have CCTS. So government will, what government says is, yes, for a particular year, we will give you a, quota of emissions, right? Say X tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which means that you can emit. This is your quota. You can emit up to this level. But if you surpass this level, if your emissions at the end of the year are more than this level, then you have to purchase the carbon credits from other entities. So that's the compliance. If you don't do that, then there will be penalties. And there are voluntary markets also. If there is no regulation, right, then voluntary trade of carbon credits happen. We just discussed that. In case of SBTi targets have been set up, net zero targets are there, so the companies will purchase these carbon credits and they retire these credits and they reduce their emissions by that same number, right? Now coming back to additionality, I try to make you understand through this example. This is a baseline scenario. If the project is not happening, if the project, carbon reduction project is not taking place, then these are the amount of emissions. Say this is X. Now, additional scenario is that if the project is taking place, then apart from this, this is the same, right? This is the same amount. This new reduction should be happening. This is the reduction, right? So this is the, amount of emissions which was there, say 10 million tons or 10 metric tons, which were already there in absence of the project. Now the project has taken place. The amount of reduction that should happen should be, additional to the baseline scenario emissions is what it says. So additionality means a project is additional if the emission reductions it generates are beyond what would have occurred in the baseline scenario. And this is the main point of verification. This is the main, you can say, the main check in the verification if the project is additional or not. Otherwise, it's very easy, right? You can take pictures of a forest and say that yes, we have developed this forest. But in reality, the forest was already there, or the forest was developed by somebody else, or the forest was, developed as a result of some other activity, not your activity, right? So this is the kind of verification which has to be done, and the carbon credits are verified, or the project is verified, and then only carbon credits can be issued. And there's types of additionality, two, three types of additionality. These are in-depth, concepts, but yes, financial, the project isn't financially viable without the revenue from carbon credit. So it wouldn't have happened if there was no revenue, or if there was no, you can say, finance, right? So that way it is additional because the project is happening only because you've got the finance, you have got the revenues, you've got the investment, right? A solar mini grid in a village. Otherwise, who will put the solar mini grid in a village? Only government can do that, right? Nobody will do that. Regulatory, the activity is not already required by law of regulation. So emission control of cement plants. See, if the activity is already required by the law, then what additional benefit, what additional value you are providing in the project, right? If not today, it will be done tomorrow, right? So there is no additionality in that case. So there should be no law, and it should have been done in an additional manner. Technological use of technology, not common practice. which means direct air capture is a new technology. Now, if you say that, you know, we have installed all the LED lights in our office, you're not creating any additionality in that case, right? LED is so common as a technology. Everybody is using LED, right? So these are the kind of checks, these are the kind of, subjective checks which have to be done. Now, there's a connection of Article 6 of Paris Agreement. Article 6 of Paris Agreement is the article, or is the, you can say, on the high level, or the highest level, at the top level, it has shown the mechanism of these carbon credits. It happened in 2015 in, the Paris Agreement. Article 6 extensively talked about the carbon credits. And it talked about the rules of the game on the top level. So there are Article 6.2, 6.4, 6.8, right? So Article 6.2 talks about the cooperative approaches and internationally transferred mitigation outcome, which means if, say, if the mitigation activity or the reduction project is happening somewhere in Africa and carbon credits are generated, they're verified, right? They're generated in the registry. Then a company from US, you know, they can purchase the carbon credit. So in a way, they are financing that project in a different country. 6.4 says sustainable development mechanism, carbon, you know, the carbon credit. So about the activities and other things. And Article 6.8 talks about the non-market approaches, which means trading. It is not limited to trading. Somebody can contribute to the markets by developing a technology, a new technology. And based on that developed new technology, say direct air capture or direct, carbon capture, other entities can use that technology to create or to generate the carbon credit. So these are the three articles on a high level which talks about the carbon credit market. So Article 6, it sets the rules for the international cooperation on climate action, including carbon markets. So countries can achieve their nationally determined contribution, because it all starts with nationally determined contribution. Nationally determined contribution means on a country level, not on a company level, on a country level. Say, for example, India says that by 2070 we will go net zero. So that's a nationally determined contribution from the country. And it sits at the top level, and then, it percolates to the companies, to the emitters in that country, and then to, lower level. So it comes from there. Why Article 6 matters? It provides a legal framework for, the trading of carbon credits, how they can be generated, and all the rules. It also ensures environmental integrity, right? So the quality of carbon credits, the characteristics of carbon credits, and also create links between compliance market and voluntary markets, right? So these are the, you can say, all the concepts of carbon credit, carbon offset, overall carbon markets. In the next video, we will see the process, how carbon credits are generated, how the projects takes place, and I will also show you one project detailed document, PDD, of one of the projects in India, what it means and how does it shows all the information, etc., right? So yeah, thank you.